problem that the world has today is us. We're having such a huge impact through most things that we do. Whether it's building roads or CO2 that we produce, or raping our oceans, etc. The impact is just so big that the planet is having a hard time coping with it. So I guess I would leave humans out, and then the rest would be all right. Well, I'm a biologist, and when I was studying biology first in Oxford and then in Cambridge, I realized that there's lots of people out there who want to do more than just roast on the beach and in their holiday time. And also I realized that, well, there's lots of scientists with interesting projects everywhere, and the two things they usually lack is manpower and funding, and that's exactly what Biosphere brings. So it enables ordinary people to come in their holiday time, work with scientists around the world on their projects, and through their expedition contribution it funds the project, and they put in the labor and they help tracking cheetahs, or capturing on camera trap snow leopards, or photographing whales, whatever we do with the scientist.
Okay. Can you talk us through one of your expeditions?
Well, since we're in Australia, let's do one that's closest to Australia. We are thinking about doing expeditions in Australia, but that's maybe 1 or 2 years down the line. But Oman is an Arabian leopard expedition. So what we do there is we work with Diwan, which is the royal court. They have a department for nature conservation, and we work with their people, and we work with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Affairs. And we do a survey of leopards in an area where they still exist. They've been pushed back along the Arabian Peninsula almost everywhere, but there are some mountainous regions in Oman where they still persist, but we don't really know how many there are there, and that's kind of the baseline data that you need in order to be able to do plans on how to conserve them over time. So we're in the early stages of that project, and we're doing a survey of how many there are and training locals and building capacity at the same time.
You mentioned the locals there. What elements, what benefits do you think Biosphere expeditions bring to the local people?
Well, it's central that we do, and that the locals see an incentive for keeping these animals alive. Long gone are the days where we say, look, this is a national park, everyone out, we'll post guards around it, and try and protect the wildlife inside. It just doesn't work. But if you can show the local guy that there is some money to be made, and money rules the world. Let's not be, let's not mince our words here. If you can show them that, I'll give you an example from Africa. If you can show the guy, well, if you kill the elephant, you might make $600 by selling the ivory, but if you keep it alive, you can show it to tourists, for the next 30 years, and each year you'll make 150. And they can do the sums themselves. So it's creating incentives for people to keep these animals alive. We biologists say what pays stays. So in Oman, for example, we're thinking of ways of creating incentives for people, setting up a program where they can show the animals to tourists that come along. There's a research center that we're involved in setting up, and a visitor center, and we're also training them. We're using them during our expedition times as cooks, as guides, as porters, etc. So it brings in money into the local community.
Fantastic. And what the people who go on the tours, it sounds like there's obviously quite a large adventure element to these tours. They're not just to just sit back, turn up in a bus and see an animal kind of tour. Can you talk us through some of the adventure angles that the tours involve? Well,
we actually don't call them tours for that very reasons. We call them expeditions because, our tagline is experience conservation in action. So it's not getting on the bus and being spoon-fed lions on the savannah with all the other tour buses. It's about having a project there. Your primary reason of being there is helping the local scientists conduct this project. And the beautiful thing about biology is that a lot of it is stamp collecting. And by that I mean it's simple tasks that people need to do and that they can do without being biologists, but someone's got to do them. There is no satellite technology or whatever that can tell you, look for Arabian leopards in Oman, look for snow leopards in Altai, and tell me how many there are. That technology doesn't exist. It needs bodies on the ground, walking the trails, talking to the locals, looking for the scratch marks, looking for the scat, looking for the tracks, looking for the animals themselves, putting up camera traps, photographing them. You know, it's extremely labor intensive, but it's easy to learn. It's easy to learn to recognize a track. And if you're not sure, you all have, when you're out in your small groups, digital cameras. The scientist won't be with you all the time because he might be with another group. So you just take a photo, bring it back to camp in the evening. The scientist looks at it and says, no, that's actually a wolf, you know, we're not interested in that. It says, oh, that's an Arabian leopard track. Let's go back there. And you'll have a GPS and you will have logged the photo that you've taken, so we can easily find it. So we explain to people how to record the data, how to fill in data sheets, how to work with a map and a compass, and how to recognize tracks. And then it's always the same whether you do what's called a transect underwater, you know, on a reef check coral reef survey expedition, you swim along the transect, or whether you do it in Oman, you walk along a transect, which is a predefined route, and you just record what you see. You know, how many tracks do you find? What other animals do you see? And there's not, in Oman, for example, there's not that many around. So if you see an ibex, you know you've seen an ibex. If you've seen a gazelle, you know you've seen a gazelle. And that's the kind of information that people can gather very, very easily with minimal, you know, a day and a half training, and then contribute valuable data.
Fantastic. So there's a large element of trekking and forward driving, I would imagine. How fit do people have to be to go on the expeditions?
Well, we don't put any prerequisites on other than you have to be able to speak English, which for the Aussies is obviously no problem, and for the diving expeditions you have to have a diving qualification, but that's it. There's no fitness qualifications, and by that I mean that we have so many projects that there's something for everyone. You know, we've had people in wheelchairs on our Azores expeditions, which is mainly boat-based, where we work with whales and wolves, whales and dolphins, and we've had you know, people hard of hearing, you know, people from, you know, 18 or 16 to, I think the oldest was 87. And within the expedition there's so much to do that there's something for everyone. So let's go back to the snow leopard one. You know, if you are keen, if you're a climber, if you've got experience, you know, you can look for the tracks up on the ridges, up on the mountains. You know, go and do that track and see what data you come back with. If you're tired, you know, or if you're not that fit, you know, there's stuff to be done in the valleys, or there's stuff to be done near the camps. You know, we do bird surveys, you know, so there's something for everyone, and the expeditions are so flexible that fitness isn't a huge issue. And
how do these expeditions actually present themselves, or how do you go about selecting them?
They select themselves in the sense that scientists come to us and they say, look, I have this project, and you know, I need funding and I need manpower to be able to do it. And then we go through a very rigorous process that's many stages to make sure that, you know, what we're doing and the funding that we're putting in, you know, there's measurable outcomes, there's good outcomes for the local community as well as the wildlife, and it's a fairly involved process. And you know, if we get 50 applications a year, only 1 or 2 of them actually make the grade. So it's basically self-selected. I'm a Bezinago, I'm a familiar, never not your little. Ayo da, nebugania, irote da, now la wonorugo. Ayo da, nebugania, irote da, now la wonorugo. Nigirali weyo, now no jora.